Your upload is due Friday. 3 client revisions are open, and the idea you actually care about is buried under 12 small tasks that all look equally urgent. If that pattern keeps running, the cost is not only missed deadlines. The sharper cost is quality erosion. Every project receives fragments of attention, and none of them gets a clean finish line. The load line operating system gives a solo creator one working artifact, the load line board, and one hard rule: only 2 active lines can carry work at once. The practical output is visible. A swollen task list becomes 2 protected outputs, a holding area for everything else, and a friction record that changes the next plan instead of repeating the same overload. Overwhelm persists because most solo operators treat capture as control. They collect tasks, tag them, color them, and still carry too many live obligations in their head. A long list can remember work, but it cannot decide which work deserves load-bearing capacity. That is why the diagnostic question matters. What is carrying the next visible output, and what is only carrying noise? A task becomes noise when it has no inspected deliverable, no protected time, and no consequence if delayed. The operator is not losing motivation first. The operator is losing a reliable boundary between active work, possible work, and distracting residue. Without that boundary, every interruption can pretend to be a priority. The load line operating system is built for solo creators managing multiple deliverables without a manager absorbing the sequencing decisions. It applies when projects compete for the same attention, tools, and creative energy. It does not replace emergency triage, team governance, or the judgment required to choose a good offer. Its mechanism is narrower and more useful. It converts tasks into load. The artifact has 5 parts. At the top is the anchor outcome, the result that makes the week worthwhile. In the middle are 2 active lines. To the side is the holding bay. Below is the friction ledger. At the bottom is the recovery slot, a small capacity reserved for spillover. The system controls 3 decisions: what can be active, what must wait, and what the next schedule must learn from the last one. The first operating rule is the 2-line rule. No more than 2 active lines can carry work at once, and each line must contain 1 deliverable, 1 next visible output, 1 protected block within 48 hours, and 1 constraint. This works because it forces a task to prove it can move under real capacity, not imagined capacity. Use it for creative production, client delivery, publishing, course building, and administrative work that competes with those outputs. Do not use it to ignore true deadlines or safety-critical obligations. Those need immediate handling before the board is rebuilt. The decision changes from "what should I do next?" to which 2 outputs can honestly carry my available attention. If an item has no protected block, it is not active. It is waiting. The second rule is capacity before sequence. A task cannot enter an active line because it is emotionally loud or easy to start. It enters only when the next visible output can fit into a protected block. The default block is 90 minutes for deep creation and 30 minutes for shallow resolution, but those are design choices, not laws. The trade-off is uncomfortable. Some worthwhile tasks must wait even when they are simple. That delay prevents small work from consuming the space needed for quality work. A midpoint self-audit is enough to catch drift. Look at the 2 lines. Does each have a visible output? Does each have a protected block within 48 hours? Has everything without both been moved out of active work? If not, the board is lying. A creator has 12 hours this week to produce a tutorial, answer audience comments, update a sales page, and outline the next newsletter. The visible constraint is simple. 1 publishable asset is due Friday, and the creator has only 3 deep work windows. On the load line board, the anchor outcome becomes a finished tutorial draft. Active line 1 carries the tutorial with the next visible output set as a rough cut. Active line 2 carries the sales page with the next output set as a revised offer section. Comments and the newsletter move to the holding bay. The action is not to work harder. It is to protect 2 blocks for the rough cut before touching the smaller tasks. The trade-off is slower response time in the comments. The measurable output is a completed rough cut by the second block. The takeaway: focus becomes inspectable when it produces an object, not a feeling. The third rule is to spend the friction, not just record it. After a protected block, the operator writes what was expected, what was actually produced, what friction changed the result, and what adjustment will shape the next similar decision. This is the learning loop. It works because missed plans often contain useful information about hidden setup, unclear scope, or interruption patterns. It fails when the ledger becomes confession instead of design. The point is not to criticize the operator. The point is to change the next load decision. If a 90-minute writing block repeatedly produces only research notes, the next board should not keep calling that work writing. It should split research and drafting into different outputs. The trade-off is slower closure today for a cleaner estimate tomorrow. A freelance consultant is preparing a client workshop while also handling 2 proposal requests. The constraint is a fixed delivery date and a client who sends late source material. The first board assigns active line 1 to the workshop deck and active line 2 to one proposal. The decision is defensible, but the plan breaks when the source material arrives incomplete. Instead of forcing both lines forward, the consultant moves the proposal to the holding bay, uses the recovery slot to build a missing information map, and sends one concise request to the client. The visible output is not a finished deck yet. It is a gap map that makes the stalled work inspectable. In the friction ledger, the consultant records that client-dependent work needs an earlier material check before it becomes active. The next similar project changes. The first protected block becomes source verification, not slide production. The takeaway is that failure becomes useful only when it changes the next loading rule. The most common misuse is turning the holding bay into a hidden 3rd, 4th, and 5th active line. If you keep checking it all day, it is no longer holding work. It is leaking work. The response is to review the holding bay at one chosen transition, not continuously. Another failure mode is choosing 2 tiny tasks to avoid one consequential deliverable. The 2-line rule is not permission to stay comfortable. At least one line should usually carry the anchor outcome unless a real deadline overrides it. The system also cannot solve unclear strategy. If the offer, audience, or project value is confused, the board can expose the confusion, but it cannot make the choice for you. Its job is load control, not omniscience. Return to the Friday collision. The deadline, the revisions, and the buried idea are no longer one fog of obligation. The closing question is the same one that opened the boundary. What is carrying the next visible output, and what is only carrying noise? The operating takeaways are specific. Build one load line board before the week accelerates. Let only 2 active lines carry work. Require every active item to show a next visible output and a protected block within 48 hours. Move everything else to the holding bay without pretending it is being handled. After each block, spend the friction by changing the next similar plan. The transformation is observable. Fewer live promises, clearer outputs, and a record that improves future loading decisions. The work may still be demanding, but the load is no longer invisible.